With the unfortunate passing of one Jason David Frank, aka Tommy Oliver, it got me thinking about something that he became famous for. You see, in the original MMPR, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, he became known as the Sixth Ranger, and ever since then started a trend where every other show, or version I should say, of Power Rangers would have a Sixth Ranger. Eventually would get a Sixth Ranger. They would go through a story arc, and the story arc would conclude with them becoming the sixth team member. And this is a tradition that's been going on even up to today. But when it comes to this Sixth Ranger syndrome, if you will, it's not just with Power Rangers that you see it in. You see it in all media. One media that I was thinking about when it comes to the whole Sixth Ranger thing was, well, ironically, My Little Pony. Friendship is Magic. And I gotta give a big shout out to, I think their name is Blaze Winter, I believe. Blaze Winter, who did a lot of MLP Power Pony Power Ranger inspired videos, in I guess you can say openings that were similar to Power Rangers, basically because of the Power Ponies episode that they had in season 4. Blaze Winter, because of the similarity they had in the with Power Ponies, basically having being given temporary powers because of the superhero comic and everything. And Blaze Winter would always create all these intros for them based on the on the different variations of Power Rangers, from Mighty Morphin to to Zeo to Turbo to Lost Galaxy, you name it. And like I said, going back to connecting this with the Sixth Ranger deal, in Friendship is Magic, we pretty much got that. Yeah, I guess you can tell, but in the case of Friendship is Magic, it was more like a Seventh Ranger deal. Not just a Sixth Ranger deal. Because because of the fact that when the show originated, it was just Twilight, Applejack, Rarity, Rainbow Dash, Pinky, and Fluttershy and Spike. And there was no other seventh member or anything till later on. And that technically, that seventh member ended up becoming Starlight. Or if you look at Equestria Girls, Sunset. However you look at it, Starlight, as far as Friendship is Magic goes, became the seventh member. Essentially, being the seventh member of the main six, now the main seven, she basically took on what was known as the Sixth Ranger syndrome, even though she was the seventh pony in the group. But she took on that Sixth Ranger syndrome, or situation, or scenario, because of her involvement. And because of her involvement, she became a very popular, beloved character. Just like Tommy Oliver, Jason David Frank's character, became very popular. And again, there's other shows and movies out there that do the same thing. The groups don't have to be big or anything, but anytime you get an additional member later on in the series, even though they may be the seventh member, the fourth member, the fifth member, they always fall into that category, the Sixth Ranger scenario, all thanks to Jason David Frank being Tommy Oliver in the original MMPR series. And that's no exaggeration. That isn't. You take a look at, let's say, the Freedom Fighters, and whether we like to admit it or not, the Freedom Fighters, SAT-AM wise and early Archie wise, up to at least issue 80, I believe. So early Archie, early to basically the, I guess you could say, hitting its stride portion of the book. Basically, its SAT-AM era. It was mainly from the beginning to the SAT-AM era, which was like around the post issue 50 and so on. It was mainly for at least 80 issues, Sonic, Sally, Bunny, Rotor, Antoine, Tails. That was your team members. That was your group. And then issue 80 comes around, and Amy ends up, becoming as we know her now, thanks to a storyline reasoning for a change in design. And she basically, technically, falls into the scenario of the Sixth Ranger, even though she technically becomes the 7th member, or so on. And even though it takes time for her to officially become a member, by doing what she did, by being written into the scenario where she uses the Ring of Acorns to wish herself older, to kind of tie into the fact that she has to have her new modern look that we know of her now. With easy for me to say. Again, she might be the 7th member. She falls in that category, being the 6th Ranger, in a sense, even though she's number 7 in the group. But going back to Freedom Fighters, you look at the SAT-AM cartoon, Tails fell into that group as the 6th Ranger, as the 6th member. You go look at season 2 and how he's being trained all throughout and everything, and it culminates in Druidhedge. I mean, before that in the cartoon, it consisted of Sonic, Sally, Bunny, Rotor, Antoine, Dulcie, I think. So yeah, Rotor, like Sonic, Sally, Bunny, Antoine, Rotor, Dulcie to an extent, and Tails fell into that category. I mean, if you take Dulcie out of the equation and you look at the original group from season 1, he basically became the 6th Ranger out of that group, because he was being trained in season 2, and it culminated with that moment where he became a full-fledged freedom fighter. So yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios out there. I mean, you look at IDW, there's no doubt when they make their appearances, that they're playing up the fact that the 6th Ranger scenario is going to fall into the laps of Tangle and Whisper eventually. We all know that. We could see that, depending on how it works out. Especially when it comes to the Resistance, their answer to the Freedom Fighters. We know it's happening. It just takes time. How they make it work, we'll have to see. But the thing is, what I look at here is credit has to go to Jason David Frank's character Tommy Oliver for basically setting the stage for a lot of this to happen. Now you might say, well, how did he inspire Tails to become like the 6th Ranger in the second season of SAT-AM? How did that happen? Well, you can't tell me that the people that worked on the series didn't know that Power Rangers was based on Super Sentai, and probably didn't know that, hey, this is going to happen and all that, or didn't talk to people they knew who maybe they were close colleagues or friends with, telling them what's going on. You can't tell me they didn't take ideas and say, hey, we can do this with Tails, and do what they did, because they probably did. But again, that's just my opinion. But if you look at the comics, like I said, Amy falls into that category because of what she did in issue 80, and it took several issues or so before she officially became a member, if you will. But still, her doing what she did with the Ring of Acorns effectively put her into the 6th Ranger category, even though she was like the 7th member of the team. Not officially yet, but from a technicality standpoint, yes. So, again, I think whether we like to admit it or not, we have to give thanks to Tommy, to Jason's character of Tommy, for making that happen. Because now, anytime you see somebody become a new member of a group, in animation, in comics, in live action, you see somebody become a member of an established group, basically the newest teammate, and it's, like I said, depending on what number they might be, they still fall under that category of being, the sixth ranger, even though they could be the seventh ranger or the ninth ranger or the third ranger or the fourth ranger or whatever. They fall under that category. And I think it's all, I don't just think, but I believe it's all thanks to, Jason David Frank's portrayal as Tommy Oliver. And that's the truth. Like I'm saying, that's the absolute truth. And, going back to ponies, for example, you take a look at Generation 5, Make Your Mark, Tell Your Tale, and you pretty much know you're going to get legitimately a sixth member in the group in Misty. You already see that coming. And so Misty herself, she's going to fall under the category of the sixth ranger by being literally the sixth member of the group, of the main five, that's turning it into officially the new main six. You can see that. And again, this all ties back, in my opinion, to the idea of, the character of Tommy Oliver portrayed by Jason, making that a trend, not just in Power Rangers, but in other medias out there, when you think about it. I mean, like Boom Studios, when they did the limited 8-issue Rescue Ranger series, you know who technically became the sixth ranger in that group? Foxglove. Yeah. I mean, you had Chip, you had Monterey, you had Zipper, you had Dale, you had Gadget, and then because she played an integral, key and integral part in the series, Foxglove, in a sense, became literally the sixth ranger. And normally you wouldn't think that would happen, but again, this is a series, as I mentioned before, that was this limited series, which was, like I mentioned before, was written by an actual fan. So that fan pretty much knew, hey, Foxglove is a very popular character. Let's make her an integral part of the story. And by doing so, they kind of made her the sixth ranger. She falls under that category of being the sixth ranger. So overall, like I said, it shouldn't really be a surprise, no matter what you're a fan of or anything, whether it's a comic or a show, animated or live action. If you have a group of people or characters involved as a team, there's a good chance, especially if they befriend somebody, that someone will become the next member of their team. And despite what number that makes them, when it comes to being part of the team, by default they fall under that sixth ranger, scenario. They fall under it. Like I said, they could be such and such number, but they'll be mainly associated as being that equivalent of the sixth ranger. And it's all thanks to Tommy. It's all thanks to Jason David Frank's role as Tommy Oliver. And I don't think anybody can deny that. I don't think they can. I mean, it's crazy as it sounds. It's like with Masters of the Universe Revelation. It's kind of like with that. You had this group of misfits led by this new version of Teela, and basically at the end of the day, the sixth ranger of the group, despite her not being number 6, her being like number 3 or whatever, but just by the redemption and everything at the end, Evil Lynn became basically like the Sixth Ranger. I know that sounds crazy to say, but that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. She redeemed herself and became basically, even throughout, surprisingly, she became basically the Sixth Ranger, despite the fact that, she probably didn't seem like that or feel like, or come into the role like that. And when you think about it, she gave off the vibes of being in that role, especially at the end. So yeah, again, it doesn't matter what show or movie or series or comic you read. If it's focused on a group of characters that are like crime fighters, whatever the case may be, or doing the right thing, very, very suitably, if not more than likely, they're bound to have a new member that will fall under that Sixth Ranger syndrome or scenario, even though they may not be number 6 on the team, if you know what I mean. Because if they give off that vibe that feels like they just joined the team as like the final member, but they were probably there from the beginning, they fall under that category, along with legitimately those that join up later on in the show's run or in a continuation, like with My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and Starlight, Equestria Girls and Sunset, My Little Pony Make Your Mark, Telltale Generation 5 with Misty, Rescue Rangers with Foxglove, you name it. Sat-AM Season 2 with Tails by extension, and even Amy Rose in the Archie comics when they were getting ready to do the Sonic Adventure adaptation. They all technically, despite being like a different numbered member in the group, they technically fall under that Sixth Ranger scenario. And, by doing so, they've also, like Tommy, gained a fan base. Starlight's gained a fan base in MLPFIM. Sunset's gained a fan base in MLPEG. Misty's gaining a fan base with G5, believe it or not. Tails, of course, has always been a popular character. His fan base, keeps growing and probably grew significantly when those moments happened. Same with Amy. I mean, the list could go on. The list can go on. But in the end, like I said, I think we have to really give it to Jason David Frank for not just taking on the mantle and the role of Tommy Oliver, but and making him a very popular household name, but also basically setting the bar for what to expect in shows and comics and all that when it comes to group team ups and everything, and the potential that more than likely there will be a new member that will be basically the Sixth Ranger, not maybe in number, but basically be their equivalent of a Sixth Ranger in the group. And we have Jason David Frank to thank for that. So that's all I'm going to say on it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. Support me over at Venmo at Brian-Romer-2, Cash App at BWRoses98. Also, you can find me at patreon.com at BWRoses at the $1, $3 tier. Check out my Teespring store for merchandise just in time for the holidays. You can find this as an audio podcast at BW Roses Discussions, all of your audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at deviantart.com, says BVW1979, as well for other things there, that I post as well. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Do you think I'm just rambling here, or do you think maybe there's kind of a point to what I'm saying? Let me know down below and in the live chat, and I'll talk to y'all later.